Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Our Veterans and Their Story. My name is Christine Shirley, and I'm very happy and proud to have as our veteran today Frank Romatowski. Frank, thank you so much for being here with us today and being part of our show and going to be telling us a little bit more about your story.
Okay, thank you.
So let's start, first of all, that what branch of the service were you in?
U.S. Navy.
And what years were you in the
I was
Navy?
in October 50 till August of 54.
So you remember your months too.
Just about 4 years. They let us out 2 months early.
They did? Why
Yeah.
did they let you out early?
I guess the war was over, so they just didn't need us anymore.
And the war that you were in?
Korea.
The Korean War,
Yeah.
yes.
We made 2 tours out there.
Okay, good. And let's start off with boot camp. Do you remember boot camp at all?
Boot camp. Well, there too, we were supposed to be there for 11 weeks. We went to Newport, Rhode Island, and they cut it down to 9 weeks just to get us out. They had these ships that they wanted to get out of mothballs, so they were anxious to get crews on them. So we only were there for
9 weeks.
9 weeks, and then we went on board ship.
Oh, great. Did they feel like you had enough training to get you out there?
We really didn't have that much training. It was pretty easy, especially Newport. They just opened up, so it was new. So you really didn't have. It wasn't that hard of a training.
Training.
Oh.
So when you went on board ship, okay, what was the decision to have you go on to the Wisconsin?
They just picked. I don't know how they did it, but we had I think about 125 guys in boot camp. So some guys, most of us all went on to Wisconsin. Some guys went on other ships, but most of us went on to Wisconsin.
So you had quite an adventure on the Wisconsin,
yeah.
from what I understand.
When we went on board, the ship was in dry dock then. They were taking it out of mothballs.
And this was where?
So it was a mess. There was a lot of yard workers doing things, and then we came aboard, and we had to do down the engine room, taking the machinery apart, getting all the preservatives out of everything, and after we did that,
That was
you-
your first day? Your
What?
first day?
the first day,
Mm-hmm.
no, the first day was just assigning different guys to different engine rooms or wherever they were going to work. Not everybody went down engine room. You had some guys going to fire rooms, some guys went into ship service. You had yeomen, you had cooks, you had guys went into laundry or on the deck force. So everybody was scattered all over. Yeah.
Now, you explained to me that this was an Iowa class ship. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, and can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, they called it the Iowa class, and then all the other ships, what were made the same way, they call them sister ships. So Iowa's was the first one built. Then I think it was a New Jersey, Missouri, and then Wisconsin. So there was 4 of them. They were going to build the Kentucky, but the war was over, so they decided not to spend the money on that.
And that one was the largest of the ships, is that right?
Right.
And there was a reason why, right?
Right.
You told me. What was the reason?
Oh, after I got off in 54, in 56, they were having some kind of maneuvers outside of Norfolk, and it was real foggy. And I don't know whose fault it was, but the Wisconsin hit a destroyer.
Oh, okay.
It almost cut it in half. A lot of guys on the destroyer were killed because I think it went into the engine room, fire room, so they were flooded immediately.
Oh, my.
So you had guys killed there, but it was damaged a lot, but not enough to sink. So I guess they were to repair it. But the Wisconsin, the whole bow was destroyed. So what they did was, since they had Kentucky partway built, they took the bow out of Kentucky and they put it on to Wisconsin. And in so doing, they said the Wisconsin became 11 inches longer than the New Jersey, the Iowa, and the Missouri.
Any of the other ships.
So they always bragged,
Wow.
that was the biggest battleship. And that was the
Wow.
last battleship built.
That was
They
the
were the
last
last 4 built.
And I understand it was $100 million to build it.
$100 million. And we had a speed of 33 knots. That's like
Wow.
that's
Wow.
like 37 miles an hour. That's fast.
Yeah, ship.
Each, and like I say, I was a throttleman. At each steam turbine in the engine room put out 53,000 horsepower.
Oh my goodness.
So, and you had 4 engine rooms, 4 screws. So, and the screws on the ship, the shaft itself was 23 inches in diameter, and the propellers, they were like 13, 12 foot, 13, some were, I think they were 2 different sizes. Some were 12 foot in diameter, and some were 13.
And how wide and long was the ship?
The ship was 3 times as long as a football field,
Wow.
and a little wider than a football field.
So
So-
it's huge.
Right.
Wow.
And altogether was 55,000 tons.
Now, you mentioned you were a throttleman.
Right.
So we have a picture here of what that is. And can you tell us a little bit about what you did as a throttleman? Let's show this picture. Okay, and this should be this one right here.
Now the throttleman, you see 2 wheels here.
Okay.
They're actually like big valves where they open up the steam that goes to the, what do you call it?
This is it right here. And here's a picture.
Steam, what the heck do you call that? Well, the large wheel opens up the head trough for going to head, and the little valve is if you're going to go astern, and it puts the steam on these into the engine, and it propels the ship.
So you were propelling the ship.
Right. So whenever the bridge would give you bells, if they wanted to go standard speed or full speed, you would wear these headphones, and it would come up on a board whatever speed they wanted. So you had to open up the valve accordingly. Plus you had to watch all these different gauges to make sure everything was going okay.
So how many throttlemen were on the ship?
1 in each engine room,
And how many engine rooms did you have?
4 engine rooms.
4 engine rooms.
Right.
Wow. So that was.
Now this is number 3 engine room. What they did in number 3 engine room, that's where the officer of the watch stayed. And they had a duplication of everything from each engine room. So the officer of the watch could look at that board and make sure everything was okay in all the engine rooms. And if you got a bell and say they wanted to go to 150 RPM, he could see how fast you're doing your job, or if you're not doing it fast enough. So they would call you up and say, "Hey, you're slacking off. What's the matter?"
Wow. So then you spent most of your time in that area, in the engine room.
In the engine room,
Did you come up on deck much?
usually when you went to chow, or just to get some free air, you go on deck, walk around.
To walk around a little bit.
More or less, our sleeping quarters was in the back of the ship, where they called it fantail. So we slept 1 deck below the chow halls. So,
Oh,
and in that area there was everything. There was a guidon stand, there was a barber shop, stores, and where we ate, and all the cooks were in that area. So everything was more or less in the back of the ship there.
so that was.
So that was one of our main areas we stayed in.
So I'd like to show everybody a picture too of you here. This is M Division, right?
Right.
Okay, and where are you again? Show me where you are.
Where the heck am I?
Yup, it says top row. You said top
Here I
row.
am.
There we go. Okay.
Right.
So can you zoom in on that? And this is Frank in the picture on the top row. Okay, there's a mountain behind you. Where were you guys?
I think that was going to Korea.
On the Korea.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to find out. Now, one question I had, I hear them call the ship whiskey.
Whiskey, they
Yeah.
called it, yeah.
What does that mean? What is whiskey?
It's just short for Wisconsin whiskey.
Whiskey, yeah, because I heard that when you gave us the DVDs to take a look at. So you were on board ship, you were working away, and your title was what?
I eventually became third class petty officer.
Petty officer.
Right. I took a test for a second, but for some reason, I wasn't given it.
So as a petty officer, were you in charge of other men?
Well, that's the first time there's a third class, second class, and a first class. The third class is, just above fireman, so you didn't really give that many orders. Once you became second class or first class, then it was, you did more. What was funny about that is when a bunch of us from boot camp, we all took the test and we became third class, we came down the engine room and we figured we were going to sit around like the other guys, take it easy. So when we got down there, we had a chief from Alabama. He was a career man. And most of us were from New England. So when we came down and we told him, hey, Chief, we're all third class now. He says, third class don't mean nothing down here. Do what you were doing before. Or he was a rough guy, I'll tell you. But he would make us work while you're on watch and even between watches.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Everybody wasn't happy down there. We had one guy, he wanted to get out of there. And once you start making too much of a fuss, you get yourself labeled as a troublemaker. And once that happens, then you're in big trouble. He wanted to even put in requests to get out of the engine room. What happens there? The first guy who gets the request is the chief.
Oh.
If he says no, right up down the line, it was no. So he couldn't get out of the engine room. He was from Connecticut. So then he put in for hardship. He wanted to get out of the Navy. He didn't like it at all. So they denied him that. So eventually what he did, he pretended he was gay.
Oh.
They gave him a discharge, convenience to the government.
Oh.
So
he got himself out.
he got his switch. What they did when later on, the Army might have grabbed him. I don't know.
Well, we have another picture here. This is an actual picture of Frank. It says engine room number 4, 1952. So this is a fabulous picture that you have. It's so nice. So someone took this of you.
At that time, I was probably about 19.
Wow.
I was 18 when I went in.
And we have
That's what sometimes bothers me. Like when we went in, here we are, a bunch of guys, 17, 18, right? We get on the ship. They trained us. Went on to the shakedown cruise. Next thing we were in Korea. Here you talk about they're training guys for years and years. And yet in a matter of 6 months, here we were, from boot camp, we were in Korea already.
to go, yeah. Well, you were telling me about the Midshipmen Cruises, so why don't you talk about that a little bit?
During the summer, we always made our tours of duty in Korea during wintertime. So that left us free in the summertime. So we took 2 midshipmen cruises every summer. And we went to Annapolis and we picked up 1,000 of them. And they were stationed throughout the whole ship where they had room to put them. And we went on the cruise for about a month. And then we came back, dropped them off, and then we would take another 1,000 of them on a midshipman cruise
So the reason for this,
to get training.
to get training.
If they were in the engineers, If they were going to be engineers, they would go down the engine rooms, fire rooms. If they were going to navigation, they went, topside and wherever, or gunnery, whatever they were specializing in, that's where they were. But they did have the whole run of the ship.
So there were how many men on the ship originally?
1,500.
And then you added another 1,000
1,000.
on top of that. And there was
Yeah.
plenty of room to
There
house
was a lot of
everybody?
room. They had them sleeping in chow halls and every place else.
Wow. And so when they came on board, where did they go? Where did you sail?
Well, on the first trip we went to Edinburgh, Scotland. Then we went to Cuba. Then we went back to Annapolis, dropped them off. Then on the second one, I think we went to Halifax, Nova Scotia, Oslo, Norway. Then we went down to Cuba again, and then back to Norfolk,
So
Annapolis to drop them off.
So we do have some pictures in here of the midshipmen. Let's see if we can find it in here. Let's see.
That was all in
I
front.
think in the front? Okay,
Yeah.
let's take a look in here. Oop, that wasn't it. Okay, let's see.
Oh, here they are.
Here they are. Okay. Let's show everybody. This is what the midshipmen look like. And these are basically the people from Annapolis,
Yeah.
Maryland, okay, training to be officers.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and they have, and what's the intent of the blue or black stripe on their hat?
I guess
The
you
sailor
just
hat?
identify them as midshipmen.
As the midshipmen. Okay. All right. So, what kind of adventures did you run into here?
Adventures?
Yes. What happened here? I mean, you're out to sea with all these midshipmen, and what? Tell us a little bit about some of your adventures.
With them, you talk to them once in a while, but you really didn't mingle that much.
How about in Panama?
And when we went through the Panama Canal, we had maybe about 6-7 inches on each side. They built a battleship just big enough so it was able to go through the canal. And that was like a all-day affair. So when you were on the throttle, when you were going through there, you were busy because you were stop, go, until you got out of there. In fact, it was so tight, a lot of times we would be hitting the side of the
Oh, you
canal
did.
even.
Yeah. Wow. So that must have been pretty scary going through there.
No,
it wasn't too
no.
bad.
It was like an all-day affair, though, because you had two sets of locks there. You had one set of locks, then you had that big water area, then you had another set of locks.
Wow, it's just amazing. And then I know that you spoke to me a little bit about USO shows.
The what?
USO shows that you had.
Oh, yeah, we had the once Ann Blight. The kids
Actress.
nowadays, they probably don't know who Ann Blight is. They probably never even heard her. Who's that? Well, she was an old movie star. At that time, she was popular. So she came aboard once. And then when we were in Korea, Cardinal Spellman from New York,
Oh,
he used to come aboard.
I saw that in your book.
Right,
I saw
at
the
Christmas
pictures in
time.
the book at Christmas. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's amazing. That's amazing. And also, you crossed the equator.
right.
And before you cross the equator, there's an initiation to crossing the equator. So tell us about that.
Well, at that time, like I said, at that time we had the midshipmen aboard. So that was an all-day affair. They they had this whole tank of water. First they throw you in there, they keep putting you under water until you said you were, what was it, Pollywog? And,
Pollywog?
what was the other name?
Oh, you're thinking of shellback.
Yeah, your shellback. So they covered your head with grease, cut your hair with just a clipper. Then you had to go through a gangway of all these guys. They had these things, shillelaghs, and they would be beating you until
Oh,
you
no.
went
Oh, no.
through that yang.
And that was your initiation
Right.
in the...
Plus, you had they had one guy. He was supposed to have been the royal baby, and you had to kiss his stomach. Well,
So they didn't have King Neptune on there, did they?
they had
They
him
had
there
King
too.
Neptune?
Right,
Okay, the ruler of the sea. Okay, wow.
and that was a midshipman cruise also. We took them down there.
Oh, you did?
Then we also had one where we went to Trinidad, Haiti. I think that was all. But every time we took a midshipman cruise, we always went to Cuba. Altogether, I must have been in Cuba about 20 times.
Wow, wow, it's a long
And
time.
that was just base liberty. What they had there, if you wanted to play baseball or something, you could do that. But most of it was, they had these little huts built where you could drink beer. And everybody just more or less sat around drinking beer. If there's any old sailors, they probably know the kind of beer they had there. They used to call it Hatui. On the can was a picture of a one-eyed Indian.
Oh, I don't know. Wow, wow, that's pretty amazing. But I'd like to take a look at your medals, if we can. Maybe we could just bring that over, Frank, and you could just describe it to us a little bit. There we go. And there's Frank, right here.
Yeah, I'm a
Great
third.
picture.
I'm a third class there already. I think this is a UN or a Korean medal, good conduct medal. I think there's another Korean. I think one of these from
You have a distinguished service
Yeah.
medal. That's
New Jersey gave us one medal, and this is another Korean medal.
And what do they mean? Can you describe them a little bit further
It's just what action you were in,
during the
You got
course
it.
of the war?
and
Wow.
I even got a good conduct medal. I don't know if I deserved it.
It sounds like you did.
Like I said, when we were on our way to Korea, one of our last liberties before we got there was in Hawaii. So a bunch of the guys from the Inns room, we went out together, and I don't know, the cabbie says a good place to go is this tavern, Pearl City Tavern. So we went there, and something happened while we were there, because when I went down the engine room in the morning, I went up to lift up the coffee pot, and I had some pain in my hand here.
Oh no.
So I went down to sick bay. They x-rayed it, and they said, "Yeah, you got a broken bone here." So they put my hand in a cast. From here, these two fingers were not in the cast, but from here all the way up there, I had a cast on, and I came back down the engine room, and I told the chief, our good chief, I said, said, "Tell the chief you're on light duty." So I went down, told him, "Hey chief, I'm on light." They said to put me on light duty. He says, "We don't have no light duty down here." That's the kind of guy he was. That's why I say a lot of guys wanted to get out of there. Two of my best friends were also down the engine room. They stayed down there for a while, but then they got out. They went to the laundry.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Oh.
But like I said, once you get friendly with guys, as bad as it was down there, you didn't want to, leave your buddies.
You were used to each other. And how many of you were together in a team?
Each engine room had about 30 guys.
30 guys.
And when we were underway, you had the throttleman, you had the head watch, you had the generator watch, and you had a lube oil pump watch, you had a messenger, and then you had one guy who was down the shaft alley. Shaft alley is where the shaft goes out of the ship, where it's attached to the propeller. One guy's down there. It's a real tight area down there. That was my station once for general quarters. And it was tough getting down there because all the way down on the bottom of the ship And what you had to do down there was a big truss bearing. You had to make sure the bearings didn't get hot. And then to lubricate the shaft as it's going out of the ship, there was a big packing gland around there. And what you had to do was unloosen all these bolts, what, put that packing gland in there, and you had to get the water from outside of the ship coming in, and that lubricated the shaft as it was turning. So the guy down there, he had to watch the bearings so they didn't overheat. Plus, every so often, with that water coming in, then you have to call up and tell them to pump out the bilges.
Oh, wow, wow.
That was a one-man job. You were by yourself. And it was kind of close quarters down there.
Yeah, it sounds like a difficult job.
Yeah. And then also once I had my general quarters station was on Broadway. That's where all, it was like a corridor where you had an engine room, a fire room, engine room, and fire room. So my job then was I had to put on an asbestos suit, stand on Broadway where the opening was to the engine room. In case something would happen, and there was, I think, 3 other guys, we would have to go down the engine room to see help, whatever happened. But like down the engine room, you had steam over 600 degrees, and it's not that white steam you see when you're ironing. It's superheated. You can't even see that steam. If you were hit, if there was a leak and you were hit, it could cut your hand off.
Oh my goodness.
And so, what was I going to say?
Did anybody get hurt from working down
Plus
there?
you had 600 pounds pressure on that steam. They said if there was a major break in the steam line, the guys in the engine room would never make it out of there. It
Wow. Wow, it's a pretty dangerous
it.
job
Yeah.
to be in. And that's,
Plus it was hot. real
yeah, I
hot.
was going to say, it sounds like it's
And then you had all this asbestos down there. You were exposed to that because that stuff would settle on everything. And with the blower system down there, it would become airborne. I'd say almost half the guys in the engine room and fire room wound up with asbestosis,
oh my.
where you get that calcium on your lungs.
Yeah.
I got it. At one time I was taking 3 inhalers, and then later on, after a while, I started to get real tired easily, and they found out I had pulmonary hypertension. I don't get the right oxygen to my heart, so that makes me get tired easily.
Tired easy. Wow.
And a lot of the guys wound up having it. And you didn't get no Purple Heart for that.
No,
You might
no.
have suffered with it, but
Wow. Wow, it's amazing. Excuse me, I wanted to just talk a little bit about this.
Well,
Tell us about this picture.
this is when we were going to be discharged. Most of these guys went to boot camp with me. And when you go for discharge, it's like a 2 or 3 day affair. So when we got there was one guy assigned to give you little jobs to do while you were hanging around waiting. It happened to be the guy was giving out all those jobs. He was with us in the engine room for almost 4 years, but he was a career man and wanted shore duty, so that's where his shore duty was at, station where we discharged people were. So when we got there, naturally we saw each other, and when he came out to give them jobs, he gave everybody their jobs, and he says, M Division, I got special jobs for you guys. So when everybody was gone, he says, I want you guys to go to the EM Club and see how much beer you could drink. So this is a picture of us following orders.
And let me see, you're number 5 here. I think you told me this was you, right
Yeah.
in the middle, right? That's amazing. Wow.
So they gave exams and all that stuff, and then eventually we were discharged.
Discharge
Right.
from that. Wow.
What was funny was when I went, they had a dentist here. He checked your teeth and everything. And I told him, I said, they never finished fixing my teeth on board ship. And he says, well, you want to hang around for a couple of weeks? We'll take care of it. I said, no thanks. I'm out of here.
So then you were discharged,
Right.
and it was time to head home after the service. But somewhere in between, I think you told me you met your wife, right?
That's when I came on leave.
On leave?
I came home on leave, and my buddy was going with her girlfriend, so we could be together. We teamed up, and that's how I met her.
And that's your wife, Joan.
Joan,
And you've been married for how many years now?
57. 57 was
Wow.
that 61?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. God bless you. That is wonderful.
Like I was telling you that I always kid her that if it wasn't meeting her, I was going to stay in the Navy and I could have been an admiral by now.
You never know. It might happen. How was the food on board?
Food was very good. Like when we were out in Korea, what we did over there was, like I said, we would go along the shore, whatever positions they wanted us to hit, trains, tunnels, bridges or anything. The 16-inch guns had a range of 23 miles. When that projector to left is about 2,000 pounds, they put 250 pounds of powder behind it to get it to go that 23 miles. So a lot of times you couldn't even see land, and yet we were firing our guns. And the 16-inch guns were so accurate that even the Marines or the Army, if maybe they were going to be overwhelmed by troops, they would call in for our support. And because of the 16-inch were so accurate, they would really be in close contact with the enemy, but yet they would call for us to fire 16s to help them out.
To help them out.
Yeah. So we would do that for 30 days. Just go all along the coast, fire our guns, and most of the time we were out of range, so we weren't in any problems. And really it was easy for us because we didn't even go out have general quarters. It was more or less everybody was doing their job. Wherever they wanted the guns fired, the guys used to be on shifts, so they weren't there all the time. The engine room would be, doing our regular 4 on 8 off, and we would do that for the 30 days. Then we go to Japan, load up ammo, food, go out and do the same thing. But that one picture in the book, we went once. We had to go in real close because sometimes when the enemy, they wouldn't stay along the shore because they figured, our guns would hit them. Mm-hmm. So they would go inland. So this one time we had to go in close, and at that time we were on full general quarters, just ships that gets all sealed up, and we did get hit by they figured about a 3-inch shell. They put a hole in the deck, and the guys who were on a 40 millimeter, that was an open gun mount. Mm-hmm. They were all hit by shrapnel. 5 guys got hurt, but nobody was killed.
Oh,
I think one guy lost his eye.
Oh,
right.
Wow. Wow.
But that's what we did. And then on our second tour, it was more of the same thing, but then they signed the peace treaty. So we still stayed in the area just in case it flared up again. But then we were just going to different ports, Hong Kong, and we were hitting all different ports in Japan. And then we went to Guam. They were going to have a floating dry dock out there. They wanted to test it for the first time. So they used us to test that floating dry dock.
Did.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Now, there was a picture in here that we were looking at before where a gentleman was on one of the guns, and he was in the middle of it. Remember that picture? I want to see if we can find it in here. Maybe it's in this book where we have it tagged.
Is that the first book?
Yeah, I think that was in that
No, I
one.
think it's in this one.
Is it? I think we marked it here. Let's see. Could this be it? There it is. Okay, that's the one I
yeah.
wanted to talk about. Let's show the camera. There it is.
You see it?
Tell us the story about that.
Yeah. It hit on the second deck, I think, near the officer's barber shop. And they figured that was like about a 3-inch. And that was the only time we were hit.
That was
In
it?
fact, they says as much action as Wisconsin saw during World War II, it was never hit then. Even with all the kamikazes and all that, it was never hit.
Never hit?
That was the first time it was hit.
Wow. Okay, so then you get discharged off the ship. And
Yeah,
what
we
year
had
was
to-
that?
Oh, one thing I was
You
going
want
to
a
say
story?
about that, about, how fairly easy we had it in Korea, being in the Navy. The guys on the land, the Marines and the Army, they had it tough
Yes.
because it was very cold out there. They told us if we ever fell overboard, a matter of 2 minutes, you were finished. And I know I had some Marine friends who were out there at the same time. They were sleeping outside, and they didn't have no warm bed to sleep in or hot food and all that. So you feel sort of guilty that you had it so good.
Yeah. Well, the Marines are a tough group of people, so they very tough, very strong, and you all guys, all of you, did a fabulous job. I mean, from what you're describing to us. But let's talk about now. You off the ship, and you're ready to come home. So what was it like back then when you came home?
There was no parades, that's for sure. When I came on in August of '54, myself and this other guy who went in the Army at the same time, we started looking for a job. We looked at every place, what looked like a factory. Nobody was hiring you then. I guess they didn't need any throttlemen.
No, yeah. So what did you do? Where did you?
Eventually, I got a job in the powerhouse, right? And I stayed there for a while, but in a way, I'm lucky that I left there because being exposed to the asbestos on the ship,
Right.
I would have been exposed to more asbestos there. And a lot of the guys in the powerhouse, they wound up with the same thing, asbestos.
So you left there and you went to a different job.
Yeah, I went to different jobs. And eventually I wound up in Squib, and I retired out of there.
Okay. And now you have all these reunions that you went to.
Oh, yeah.
You have-
Every 2 years we had a reunion.
Farewell cruise. I know this is the USS Wisconsin Veterans Farewell Cruise that you were on. Now,
This
tell us
hat,
about that.
when we went on a farewell cruise, everybody was given a hat like this. What happened was our organization was always asking them, to maybe do something like that. Invite all the old crew members on board. So for the last time, when they were going to put the ship out of commission, they sent everybody a letter, whoever wanted to sign up, go down to Norfolk, you were going to board ship, you were going to go out to sea for 3 days. From Norfolk, the ship was going to go to Earl, New Jersey, for them to unload the ammo. So we went down Norfolk. We were assigned to one of the crew members. Everybody was scattered around throughout the ship, sleeping in different areas. And the ship more or less did all the other things we normally did, refueling, shooting the guns, and all that. And like I said, in that 3 days, I saw more of the ship in those 3 days than I did in the 4 years I was on the ship.
Wow.
Because being restricted, you didn't You didn't just go all over.
Now, was that this farewell cruise?
That was
the
a farewell cruise.
Yeah, this was amazing.
Right.
I watched this. It was just amazing, and we hope to have our viewers take a look at this as well. Because
Yeah, this is the main reason I wanted to come here, not to talk to myself, but for everybody to see life on a battleship. Even sailors, while we're maybe on different ships, they don't know how it is on a battleship. So this would show them, the
it's
guns
an
shooting.
amazing
Yeah.
DVD. And here's some other pictures that you have that you can describe to us about. Now, this was in '91 when you went on the
Yeah.
ship.
We that was when it was being commissioned, and they allowed us to go down the engine room. So that's me standing by the throttle, both places. And these are some of the shipmates I was with. And I want to tell you a story about this guy here, Art Olson. He was in during World War II. He was on a destroyer. When he left, he was a first-class petty officer. Excuse me. When the Korean War started, he rejoined. So when you rejoin, they usually drop you a rate. So he came in on ship as a second class, and he went down the same engine room with me. And this guy here was also in boot camp with me, and him and Olson came from the same town, Jamestown, New York. That's where Lucille Ball was from. So anyway, this guy here, he left as a second class, and he stayed in a reserve, and he worked himself up to be a chief warrant officer. That's the highest you could go as an enlisted man. And Olson, by the time he left, he got up to first class, but he had problems when he went on shore duty. He was always getting in trouble, coming back late. Once he was on shore patrol duty when we were in Haiti. Even though he was on shore patrol duty, he wound up missing the ship.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
So he got demoted then. When we were in New York, he was supposed to be on liberty for 1 day. He was gone for 3 days. So the other got demoted. So finally, when he was discharged, he was a fireman. He wasn't even a petty officer anymore. He was a fireman. So when he got discharged, Paulson was working in the powerhouse. He was a supervisor there already. And he kept asking Olson to take a job there. But Olson had a drinking problem, and he wasn't working. He was just working part-time. He wasn't interested. He had a girlfriend. The girlfriend says she wasn't going to marry him unless he stopped drinking and got a job. That didn't help him out. Finally, he started to get sick, and the doctor told him, if you don't stop drinking, you're not going to last a year. So he quit, took Paulson up on the job, and he took a job at a powerhouse. When we were on ship, like I said, as bad as he was when he was off ship, but when he was on ship, he was always in the library, always reading. He must have been one of the smartest guys on ship. So after he took the job, he went to college, took some courses. He eventually became the plant manager on a powerhouse above Paulson.
Wow!
He
Wow!
was Paulson's boss.
Wow! That's amazing. Oh goodness! Wow! And then here's some other pictures here on the back.
Yeah, that's down the engine room again.
The engine room.
Yeah. Now these were firemen. In the engine room, we also had 2 generators. So we not only ran the speed of the ship, we also supplied the electricity and the power.
Wow.
So each engine room had 2 generators also.
So I want to ask you about the reunion, the farewell cruise that you were on. What was it like going back on this ship again for the first time? How did it make you feel after
Well,
all those years?
you saw the film,
Yeah.
and you could see some of these guys. They were, tickled pink to get back on there. When you're on a ship, that's your home. You sleep there, you eat there, you work there, and you're so close with all these guys. That's where all that brotherhood comes in with servicemen.
So, with a lot of the people that you knew, were they on the same cruise?
Oh yeah,
They were.
yeah. There was,
So you got to see them again.
yeah.
So do you see them every couple of years?
We usually went to all the reunions. There was maybe about 12 of them every 2 years. We used to have it in different places all the time. But now, because the ship's in Norfolk, they have all the reunions down there. And the last two, because of my age and I don't like to drive anymore, I miss them.
You missed the
Yeah.
reunion.
I'm got to the point where I don't trust myself driving that distance.
But you still stay in touch with each other?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but a lot of them are died off already too. Like World War II, there's very few left. And even Korea, like I'm 86 now, so.
You're still young. You're
so
still
most-
young.
Yeah, but
You still. Well, is there anything else that you might want to add that maybe we haven't talked about?
I think we just about covered everything.
Covered
eh?
everything?
Yeah.
I think this has been a very interesting story that you have. It's incredible, and we thank you. So
Like I
much.
told you, I don't want to come off as any kind of hero. I just served my time. There were a lot of things I didn't want to do. There were a lot of things I was afraid to do. And you couldn't say, no, I don't want to do it. Like all servicemen, they were all in the same boat. We didn't like what we were doing, but you had to do it.
Well, every veteran is a hero.
Yeah.
That's
That's
all
what I
I
say.
think.
People, when they
Well, you're a hero to us, and thank you so much for being part of the show, Frank. We
Okay.
really appreciate it. And thank you all so much for joining us and hearing Frank's story about his adventures and his life on the USS Wisconsin. We really appreciate it, and if there are any other veterans there that might want to come and talk to us and tell us their stories, we certainly would appreciate it. And we thank you all so much, and God bless America, and God bless you all. Thank you, Frank.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
again.
Thank you,
again.
Kirsty.
Take care.